Stocks on Wall Street end lower as investors await the Federal Reserve's interest rate decision later tonight. Asian markets have opened on a mixed note as the US and China look to extend their 90-day tariff truce. The GIFT Nifty is indicating a marginally lower start for our own markets. Oil prices surged over 3% as US President Donald Trump ramped up pressure on Russia over its war in Ukraine. Gold prices also edge higher as investors await the outcome of the Fed's policy meeting.
Is the deal with India finalized?
No, it's not.
Okay.
As the 1st of August tariff deadline looms, US President Donald Trump says that a deal with India has not been finalized despite months of negotiations. Hints at import duties as high as 25% if talks do not reach an agreement. And in key results, L&T reports a healthy start to FY26 with robust order inflow that are up 41% from last year. Also keep an eye out for numbers from Tata Steel, where the company is expected to report a decline of nearly 6% in its top line from last year. Power Grid too will be reporting numbers today and is expected to see a close to 11% growth in its revenue. And India's first and largest securities depository, NSDL's 4,000 crore rupee IPO opens for subscription today, which is priced between 760 to 800 rupees a share. The company has raised 1,200 crore rupees from anchor investors ahead of the issue opening. A very important day beckons for our own markets. You're watching Power Breakfast here on CNBC TV 18 in the Mumbai News Centre. I am Hormas Fatakia. Let's first start off with how the Asian markets have started off in today's trading session. It's a slightly mixed picture, if you could call it that. The Taiwanese index is now trading with gains of close to 1%, but the Hang Seng is trading with losses of around 0.5% in today's session early in the morning. But most of the other indices are trading either at the flat line or below it. The Nikkei is trading below the flat line. The Shanghai Composite trades above the flat line with gains of around 0.2%. The Kospi in South Korea, which has been an outperformer throughout this year across the Asia Pacific basket, continues to trade with gains of around 0.5% this morning. So a mixed picture that is emerging from the Asia Pacific screen. We pull up the GIFT Nifty as well. We saw a very healthy reversal from the lows that the index made yesterday. And for today's session, which is a sandwiched session between the monthly expiry of the sensex yesterday and the monthly expiry of the Nifty tomorrow, the implied open is suggesting a marginal downtick as of now, just 14 points. But that is the global market action as of now this morning across the Asia Pacific. And let's take you through what the Indian market setup is likely to be this morning, and we'll also tell you the stocks that are likely to be in focus as well. But as we mentioned earlier, right, it was a 3-day losing streak that came to an end in yesterday's trading session. The Nifty closed above the mark of 24,800, and it was a major contributor to that move was Reliance Industries. And if you could see the stock that it moved from 11 a.m. onwards, and it closed at the highest point of the day, 2% higher on the stock, was a chief contributor to the Nifty recovery. But it was not only Reliance Industries, it was ably supported by names like HDFC Bank, Bharti Airtel and Larsen & Toubro, as you see the names in the contributors list, including Bharti Airtel as well. But the worry here is that despite the recovery, the Nifty has made lower highs and lower lows. We struggled to cross Monday's high in yesterday's session, and we also managed to break below Monday's low. So 24,598 is the new low that the Nifty made in yesterday's session. Of course, earnings among the key triggers of the day. Well, earnings continue today. 3 more IPOs are opening for subscription, including the NSDL IPO. So we'll total have 6 IPOs open for subscription over the next 2 days simultaneously. The dollar continues to strengthen, and that is something that the market will have to take note of. The dollar index yesterday crossed the levels of 99 in yesterday's trade. Tonight we'll also see mega cap tech results from Microsoft and Meta. We'll also see the all important FOMC rate decision as to what happens there with regards to the future trajectory of interest rate cuts, although this policy is more or less likely to be a status quo. So keep an eye out on that. And of course, the three intraday highs remain the hurdles for the Nifty, right? It was yesterday's high of 24,847, Friday's high of Monday's high of 889, and last Friday's high of 25,010 are the key levels for the index. 24,600 now becomes a support level. And the Nifty Bank, though, keep an eye out on that because it has not closed below that mark of 56,000 since the 19th of June. So that remains a very key level for the Nifty Bank. Now, the implied open, as we just saw, is indicating a slightly sluggish start for our own markets. Over to Upasna now, who would list out the stocks that you need to keep an eye out for today. Upasna, good morning.
Good morning. First up, let me start with L&T. Overall, it's a good set of numbers that the company's reported. The order inflow also remains quite robust. The revenue has seen an uptick of 15.5% and net profit has seen a surge of nearly about 30% on a year-on-year basis. Next up is NTPC. It's an overall miss below our poll. Net profit up 6%, while revenue is down about 4% on year-on-year basis. Bank of India is the next one. NII is down 3.3%, but the asset quality of the bank improves with GNPA at 2.9% versus 3.3% sequentially. GMR Airport, the net losses have widened from 142 crore to 212 crores, while the revenue is up nearly about 34% on a year-on-year basis. Dilip Bitcoin revenue is down about 16%. Margin stood at 19.8% versus 15.2% on year-on-year basis. Next up is Triveni Engineering. It's overall a weak set. Profit and margins under pressure. Net profit down nearly about 85% on a year-on-year basis, and revenue is up almost about 23% on a year-on-year basis at 1,598 crores. Next up is GE Vernova T&D India. Overall, it's a strong set of numbers. It's a beat across the board. Revenue has seen a sharp uptick of nearly about 39% on year-on-year basis, and EBITDA margins has sharply expanded from 19% to as high as 29% on year-on-year basis. And lastly, we are watching out for Tilak Nagar Industries as well, as the board has approved a preferential issue of securities worth 2,296 crores. So we'll be looking out for all these stocks today.
Interesting list there, Upasna. Thank you for that update. And lastly, Mangalam joins in with cues from the F&O space. Mangalam, good morning. There's some relief yesterday, but is the Nifty out of the woods according to the F&O data?
Well, there is short covering in index options. That's what led the market higher yesterday. But for it to be out of the woods, there have to be some important levels that the market has to cross. So let's talk about the good news first. The frontline indices ended at the day's high yesterday. And towards the end, we had the advanced decline far outnumbering. The advances far outnumbering the declines as well. So there was a fair amount of criss and cross between the green and red lines. And eventually, the green line showed they were the boss. And then you have the volatility index as well. We've been talking about how that has, climbed almost 20% from the highs. But remember, yesterday, after at one point being higher by about 4%, actually ended about 4.5% lower, telling you that there was a fair amount of unwinding that we saw as well. The unwinding took place in index calls, and that was the up move that was led by yesterday. Short covering by FIs and index calls, they bought around 1,851 crores in index options. But that was just a smidge of a positive up move that we got in the market yesterday, because in index, futures as well as cash, they were sellers. In cash, the FIs sold about 4,600 crores. The DIs bought 6,100 crores, a net institutional inflow of 1,500 crores. But in index futures, they continue to sell. And even in expiry week, they unwound about 3,000 longs, added 3,000 shorts. And their positioning is at 13% long, 87% short. But in the options, like I said, calls, they unwound almost 42,000 short calls and they added 41,000 short puts, taking the put-call ratio from a very oversold level of 0.64 to a more realistic level of 0.8 as well. What were the active options? 24,800 call writers, they ran for cover. 24,900 call writers, they ran for cover, as did the 25,000 call writers. But they were replaced by 24,800 put writers and the 24,700 put writers. So if you look at the premiums on all these options, that tells you that there is support between 24,700 to 24,750. That's moved slightly higher, but there is still some congestion above that 25,000 to 2550 mark, which also coincides with the technical levels. So for the market to actually sustain and stay above higher levels, the Nifty 50-day moving average needs to be conquered and closed above, and the Nifty Bank also, the 50-day moving average, which is about 100-200 points away from where the Nifty Bank is right now, needs to be conquered on an intraday basis and closed above too.
We'll keep an eye out on all of these important levels. Mangalam, thank you for that update from the F&O space as well. Take a short break here on Power Breakfast. On the other side, we'll get you a roundup of all that has happened in the White House in our special segment, Trump Watch. Stay tuned. Welcome back. On to the latest Donald Trump related developments. Dia is joining in our special segment, Trump Watch.
Tariff trouble on the horizon. President Donald Trump said that India may be hit with a tariff rate of 20 to 25%, but cautioned the final levy had still not been finalized as the two countries negotiate on a trade deal ahead of an August 1st deadline. Listen in.
India is preparing to face higher U.S. tariffs between 20 and 25%. Is that what you're tracking, or what do you think the rate will be for India?
They are going to pay 25%.
Yeah, that India is preparing to face higher U.S. tariffs between 20 and 25%.
Yeah, I think so. Look, they're my friends, and he's my friend.
Is the deal with India finalized?
No, it's not.
Okay, so what rate are you expecting?
Well, we're going to say, but India's been a good friend, but India has charged basically more tariffs than almost any other country. You know that, right? Over the years. But now I'm in charge, and you just can't do that. I think the trade deals are working out very well, hopefully for everybody, but for the United States, they're very, very good.
U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, in an interview to CNBC, said that they have done their job in terms of negotiations with India and that it's now up to Donald Trump to take a final call on the deal. Have a listen.
We put in front of him the deal. He sees the deal and he decides, do I want to do a deal with India or I don't? And that is up to him. We've done our job. They've made offers, but these countries came to the table slowly from what President Trump was hoping for. But of course, from their perspective, no one's moved as fast. For the rest of the world, we're going to have things done by Friday. And Friday is not that far away. So you should expect, we said, August 1st is the date that we're setting all these rates. And they are off to the races after that.
And it's not just India in the tariff crosshairs across the globe. Trade tensions with China are also in focus. China and the U.S. agreed Tuesday to hold further talks on extending their tariff truce, but a top U.S. trade official stressed that President Donald Trump would make any final call. Now, the world's two top economies met for a second day on negotiations in Stockholm, with both sides aiming to extend a tariff truce. Now, moving on, the Trump administration is considering halting all wind development on federal lands and in federal waters as the president expands his campaign against renewable energy source he has long criticized. And lastly, U.S. President Donald Trump said Tuesday he did not plan to attend the G20 summit in South Africa, rehashing debunked claims of white citizens being systematically persecuted and killed in the country. That's all for today. Now back to you, Hormaz.
Yeah, thanks to you for that update there. And the US markets also were showing some signs of caution yesterday ahead of some very important macro and earnings data. The S&P 500 retreated from its record highs. There were also uncertainties regarding the progress on trade talks with China, and traders also are bracing for the Fed decision later tonight. Now, both of them, the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq, ended lower after hitting record highs on an intraday basis. And the Dow Jones, which is yet to hit its own record high, fell almost 200 points. Now, the Fed's two-day meet ends tonight, and Chairman Jerome Powell will announce the decision along with commentary on the future trajectory. CNBC's Steve Leisman joins in with the key expectations.
The Federal Reserve is expected to hold rates steady at its meeting this week en route to an expected September rate cut, and respondents to the CNBC Fed survey seeing a three-way tie in the race to replace Fed Chair Jay Powell. Here are the Fed expectations. 100% say no cut in July, but 27% think the Fed should cut. That reflects some agreement with the two Fed governors who many think might dissent at this meeting. 65% expecting the cut in September. The chance of recession falling to 31% from 38% in June and 53% in May, amid more clarity on the tariff impact, along with somewhat better GDP, now at 1.4%, up from 0.8% from the May low. Take a look now, the current rate outlook from the Fed, from respondents. 4.4 is the current, goes down by about two rate cuts in, this year, two more next year, showing the Fed is still remaining above the neutral 3.3% rate, even with a new Fed chair. But who that next Fed chair will be, well, that's anyone's guess. We have pretty much a three-way tie here. Kevin Warsh at 24%, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent at 24%, Hassett at 22%, and then Fed Governor Waller at 14%. Besson has said the president could pick a new Fed chair as soon as December. That would be just a couple months earlier than either former Fed chairs Bernanke or Yellen were nominated. The Powell's tenure or term ends in May.
Steve Leisman there with the expectations from the US Fed later tonight. Let us also listen into what Goldman Sachs Vice Chairman and former Dallas Fed President Robert Kaplan expects from this Fed meet.
I think you're going to see him be balanced and leave his options open, including the option of acting in September. I think he's going to be careful not to get too deeply into tariffs. And, the fact of the matter is there are a number of disinflationary forces that are going on here. Growth is sluggish. There's a regulatory review, should be disinflationary. We have an AI boom. It should ultimately be disinflationary. You have goods overcapacity around the world. Against that, we'll get more resolution, and we're about to get more resolution on what the tariff rates will be. Those will certainly increase costs. The question is, will it lead to persistent price pressures in a disinflationary environment? And the truth is, for this meeting, I think they're not sure. I wouldn't be sure either. But I think they're going to direct attention to September, and I think you'll see them try to be balanced.
That is all the action from the global markets overnight. We take a short break. On the other side, we get you cues from the commodities market. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Now, in a major relief for JSW Steel, the Supreme Court has agreed to hear petitions of both the company and its lenders in the Bhushan Power insolvency case. Ashmit is here to bring in more details and explain why this is a significant development. Ashmit.
Well, big relief coming in for JSW Steel as well as for the lenders in the Bhushan Power and Steel case. The Supreme Court agreeing to hear their review petition in an open court. Now, let's add context to that. Why is that significant? Bear in mind that in the month of May is when the Supreme Court had scrapped the entire resolution plan for 19,700 crore rupees altogether, had sent shockwaves across the IBC space, had sent the clock back by as many as 5 years. And it's after that that a review petition was filed by JSW Steel by the lenders. Now, as is the course, review petitions are decided within the judges' chambers. They don't hear any arguments. It's done within closed doors. And therefore, an application had also been made by both JSW Steel as well as for the lenders, asking for an open court hearing, which would allow them an opportunity to impress upon the court why it's important to overturn this May judgment by the Supreme Court. That relief has been granted. Just yesterday, the Supreme Court passed the order issuing notice, agreeing to hear this petition, issuing notice on the review petition, saying that the Supreme Court will be taking this up on July 31st at 3 p.m. And that's when JSW Steel, as well as the lenders, will be able to make their case. JSW Steel, as a part of its petition, has been arguing that they've managed to script a turnaround for Bhushan Power and Steel. Sales have doubled, revenue has tripled, and that's the argument they'll be leading with on July 31st when the Supreme Court takes up this review petition in the Bhushan Power and Steel insolvency case.
Ashmit, thank you for that significant development there. And Manisha Gupta now joins in with all the updates from the commodity space. Manisha, good morning. Some rise in oil prices seen overnight.
Oh, yes, a second straight day. And, Monday was 2% of gains, and Tuesday we've seen 3% of added gains come back in case of crude. So with that now, we're trading at a 5-week high. It is $72 a barrel for the Brent prices now. We've been looking at the rising geopolitical tensions and then, of course, improving global trade relations with so many trade agreements happening and on table as well has been supportive for the crude demand going forward. But majorly, it really is about Russia, where after the U.S. president saying that Russia has 10 days now to agree on a ceasefire or face sanctions, you also have statements coming in from the U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent saying that with the U.S. secondary tariff legislation, if the sanctions on Russian oil come, then China could also be facing higher tariffs if Beijing continues to buy Russian oil. So there are various statements coming in, and this is exactly what seems to be finding its way in case of prices. In focus now is the China PMI data. That's on Thursday. You also have Bank of Japan monetary policy meeting. But ahead of that, you have the U.S. Fed meeting today as well. And statements, tone, etc. is what the street will absolutely cling on to. Ahead of the Fed meeting, you have the dollar index trading at a 1-month highs into the market. And that seems to be putting pressure on various metals. If you look at aluminum, zinc, silver, we have seen declines come in for this one. The ferrous metals are doing well. So steel, iron ore prices trading at around 4-month highs. Gold as well trading slightly higher ahead of the U.S. Fed meeting. So all focus, center and square, is on U.S. Fed meeting today.
All eyes will be on Jerome Powell and company. Manisha, thank you for that update. Now, tsunami warnings have been issued in Japan after an 8.8 magnitude earthquake struck off Russia's east coast. Warnings have also been issued for coastal regions, while lower level advisories are in place for other parts of the country. Japan has also urged residents in affected areas to evacuate immediately as the first tsunami wave hit the Hokkaido island a short while back. Authorities have also warned that subsequent waves could even be higher. We'll keep an eye out on all of these tsunami-related developments as well. But with that, we call time on this edition of Power Breakfast. From me and the team that put this show together, thank you so much for watching. Bazaar Morning Call on the other side to set you up for the day's trade.